Time to follow the money. Next Tuesday, the Finance Minister, Chrystia Freeland, will give the fiscal and economic statement. It will be an important look at the state of the government's finances at a time of very high inflation, flooding in BC, and the arrival of the Omicron virus variant in Canada. In the House, the Conservatives are decrying the Liberals' mass pandemic spending, even though they approved a lot of it, while the NDP are calling for more financial supports for Canadians. Now, one of the new COVID-19 measures on the table from the government is something called Bill C-10. That's legislation to provide 10 paid sick days for employees in federally regulated workplaces. According to a new costing note for the Parliamentary Budget Officer, providing 10 new sick days will generate about $229 million in revenue for over 4 years. But will that revenue offset other government spending? Absolutely not. New supplementary spending estimates peg the total 2021 expenses at $497 billion. That's a big number. It's even hard to say. So what does that mean? Well, Yves Giroux is the Parliamentary Budget Officer, and he's here to break down the numbers as we follow the money. Mr. Giroux, so you got $397 billion that needs to be approved out of that $497 billion. Put these numbers in perspective when you see the size of these numbers.
Well, it's a decrease compared to previous years. Well, the last year, the year of the pandemic, that was the brunt of the expenditures when the economy was in lockdown. But it is still significantly higher than what we saw prior to the pandemic. And the amounts that the government is seeking approval for in the supplementary estimates are for programs, in good part, that are being extended. So the recovery benefits, such as the caregiver benefit and the other suites of benefits. So there's about $3.7 billion in additional spending, which is being sought as part of Bill C-2, which extends these benefits. So significant increase in spending, even though it's not as high as last year, it is still considerably higher than pre-pandemic. And we don't know what's in store for the budget because we're still months away from the budget. And we don't know, the minister could always announce some additional spending measures in the update that she'll be releasing next week. So the year is not over, and we are still spending quite a bit in Canada.
Okay, 338 members of Parliament have got to oversee this, and just so people know that there's sort of 3 times in a year these supplementary estimates come out to find out if there's new spending, as the Parliamentary Budget Officer Yves Giroux just said. In your view, do MPs have enough information from the government to actually make a good decision on whether or not to approve the new spending?
Well, those best placed to decide that or to determine that would be the MPs and the senators themselves. However, in my humble opinion, it's demanding a lot of these poor men and women to approve this additional spending when some of it has already taken place, was announced in the budget. But more importantly, they're asked to approve that relatively quickly, while not even having a clear idea as to how much the government spent in the year that ended March 31st, 2021. So that's more than 8 months ago. And the government still has not released the final results, the deficit figure, the spending and revenue figures for that year that ended again in March earlier this year. So 8 months after that, MPs and senators are being asked to vote for additional spending for this year, but nobody has told them yet how much the government managed to spend last year. So do they have enough information? In my opinion, probably not, because at that time, when we're at the supplementary estimates part 2 or B, MPs and senators should know by now what was the final number for the year that ended last March.
Yeah, by the way, provinces have already released that, right? If you're voting on supplementary budgets in provinces, they've released it. Somehow the federal government has not released their final figures at the year end in March, and now they're asking MPs who don't know what they spent last year to approve new spending. That basically sums it up. And there's real money here.
Big money. Last year, we expect the deficit to be around $300 billion. Maybe it's going to be 320, 330, 280. Who knows? The government has not released that figure. even in a normal year, the federal government is typically later than many other jurisdictions by releasing its numbers anywhere between September, October, sometimes November when it's really late. Now it will likely be mid-December until we get the final results. So it's really worrying to see that slippage of releasing the numbers for what has already happened. There shouldn't be any big secrets there. It's money that was spent, collected, and it's the difference between these two leads to a deficit. So there's no big secret there.